Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Got a little quick machine shop project we're going to be doing today, and thought you guys might enjoy tagging along on this. So a little story, as always, to get started with it. This project actually comes from Hector Mitchell, who lives out in Denton, Texas. And Hector is a person that I've actually, I've never met him, but I've kind of known him, I guess, for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, something like that. Several years ago, I had a little Logan lathe that I was needing to sell because we were moving and I just needed the room. I didn't have a place to store it. And Hector ended up buying that lathe from me and ended up getting it from me. But like I said, we never met. We kind of transferred it between some people to get it out there to him. And he's been using that lathe for the last several years and everything's been good. Well, recently he had a chance to upgrade lathes a little bit, get a little bit larger lathe and one that has a quick change gearbox and what have you. And he picked up a Clausing model 100 MK3 that was made in 1946. The problem was that it had a few issues, and one of which being is there was a little bit shaft on there that this little lever and this little gear here engage, and that little shaft had become bent and to the point that it was unusable. And also in the process of this, a couple of teeth on the back gear were stripped off. So had some issues, but he felt like he could fix it. So anyway, he bought the lathe, and on the Logan lathe, he made a new shaft right here for that to go on. But he doesn't have a milling machine, and he wanted to know if I could mill a couple of Woodruff keys in here to get all this going, and I said sure, send it on to me. He also sent the gear, and that's going to be a project for a little bit down the road. We're going to actually do a repair and actually repair a couple of teeth on that gear as soon as I get my dividing head plates made that I need for my dividing head to have the right increments to be able to use to fix that part. So that'll be a project coming up as well. But let's zoom in here, show you these parts, show you the issues, and we'll get a fix going for it. So here are the parts. So again, we got this little shaft here, and you can probably see it's bent right here. Looks like someone may have crashed it at some point in time. I'm not sure exactly what happened. So the handle, the lever here is keyed in there with a 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch Woodruff key, and this little gear or prawl or whatever you want to call it on the other side it goes on this side, and it's interesting how they mounted this. So it looks like what they did was they put it all together, got it exactly where it needed to be. Then they came in and they actually drilled a round hole in between the two and drove a piece of round stock in there to actually key that instead of a Woodruff key. And I imagine they did that so they could actually get it lined up on the machine exactly where it needed to be. So instead of trying to repair it back like this, though, I think we're going to go ahead and put another Woodruff key on that side. We're going to change that out to a Woodruff key. And the nice thing is that we have on both these pieces, we know where the two keys need to be in relation to one another. So we don't have that problem they had at the factory where they needed to get them lined up. We've got that taken care of. In fact, on my part here, Hector's already marked exactly where he wants the two Woodruff keys to go. So we're going to put a Woodruff key on both sides of this, and then on the prawl we're going to need to broach that out and actually put a keyway in there. And I've got a little 1/8 inch broach and a broach bushing that we'll put in there, and we'll line that up and get it where it needs to be. So let's get going. I think we'll start with cutting the Woodruff keys. So I went over to my selection of Woodruff keys and I found the one that fit, and it is, like I said, a 1/2 inch diameter by 1/8 inch key. And I went and looked that up in my machinery's handbook, and I found 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch, which is right here, which is either number 404 or number 3 cutter. And then I went over to my cutters and found the number 404 or number 3. This one's marked either way, which is the 1/2 inch by 8. So we got the right Woodruff key cutter. The next thing I wanted to look up in here is how deep do I need to cut this? And if you look in the machinery's handbook, it gives you all the dimensions you need to know for this. And if you look, D here is the depth of the key slot. So I look down here, 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch half, which is number 404, number 3, and it says for the key slot depth, it gives a minimum and maximum of either of between 0.1355 thousandths and 1.405 thousandths or 10 thousandths. So what I'll do is we'll get over to the mill machine and I can use my digital readout, and I'll probably just shoot for something about halfway in between the minimum and maximum there. And we'll be in tolerance and have our keyway cut to depth. Nice to have your machinery's handbook as a reference to figure this kind of stuff out. So I think we're all ready to go here. What we're going to do is we need to first off get our cutter at the right depth so that we're measuring in the center of this. So to do that, I know that my shaft is a 1/2 inch in diameter, 0.500. I know that my cutter is an 1/8 inch in diameter, or in thickness this way, which is 0.125. So what I need to do is I need to basically, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch off on the top here so that this cutter is just barely touching the top. Now I know that the bottom of the cutter is in line with the top of this, and I'm going to come off the part and we'll raise the table up half the diameter, which will be a 1/2 inch, and then also we need to add in a half the thickness here. So we'll have to come up a 1/4 of an inch, 250 thousandths for the diameter to get on center, and then add to that another 0.0625, which is a 1/16 of an inch, for a total of 0.3125. So let's go in here and we'll touch off on that and get it done. When I'm cutting Woodruff keys, I don't like to run too terribly fast, so we got this running about 75 RPMs, and I'm just going to bring my table up and I'm going to watch it very carefully here until I just see a chip come off of it. I'm getting real close. All right, it just touched barely right there. So let me come out. Then on my DRO, I'm going to go ahead and we'll zero out the Z-axis, which is the height, and we're going to bring it up now, 0.3125. 100, 200, 3, oops, a little too far, 1, and I only go on even numbers on my tenths, so we'll go 3124, and that's within a 10,000th of an inch, and I will lock my table down on that, and now my cutter should be running right smack dab in the center. So now I'm going to go ahead and zero out my Z-axis. I just like working off the zeros once I get everything set, and we're good to go there. So next thing I want to do is over here on my part is I want to touch off on the end of the piece, very similar to how I did on the other one there, and that's going to give me a 0 to start with on my depth. So we'll bring that in. Again, until I just see a chip come off of it, and that's 0 right there. And I'm going to zero in my DRO on that. I'm going to back off. We'll come in so that we clear this way. So I know that I want the edge of this keyway to be right on the edge of the shaft, because the part that's going on here is a 1/2 inch thick. My keyway, or my cutter there, is a 1/2 inch. So I've got this outside edge marked at 0 on the DRO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over a 1/2 inch, because in this case we need to move it over that entire distance. We got this edge on this side, I want this edge on it, so we'll move it in a 1/2 inch. So again, using the DRO, we'll go to our 0 and then move on past that to 0.500. right there and lock the table down. And very often when I lock my table down, it moves my number just a little bit, and I have to fine tune it and do my final tighten right there. So now we're good on that axis, and again I'm going to go ahead and zero that out. And then the final thing we're going to do is again come in here this way. We'll touch off. All right, that's the zero right there. I'm going to zero my DRO. I'm going to back off of that for just a moment, and we'll get ready to cut it. I'll lube this up real good. And the depth of cut on this is going to be 138 thousandths, which is halfway in between that minimum and maximum. So we'll go back to zero over here on the DRO, and we should be cutting right there. And we're just going to take our time and feed that in till we get to 138 thousandths. Right there. Come out when Woodruff key is cut. So we're going to leave our setup exactly like it is. The depth and everything's not going to change with this setup. So we'll just pull our part out. In this case, we've got another one to cut on the other side. And we'll go ahead and put that one in there. And you know, I got marks that I'm working off of, and I am just eyeballing these. You know, they need to be pretty close, but let's face it, you know, it doesn't have to be within a thousandth of an inch or anything on these positioning between these two keys. It's not that critical. There's a good bit of play in there, so eyeballing it's going to be good enough. So let me get some measurements, and we'll go ahead and start on this one. So we've flipped our part around now. We've got the other shaft in here, and again, what we want to do is get our cutter positioned along the length of this first, and I'm going to need to re-zero this. The depth of cut, or in the getting in the center, should not have changed, so we should be good to go there. So I'm going to come in here again. We're going to touch off just like we did before. All right, that's zero right there. I'm going to zero my DRO. Come in this way. Now for this part, I measured the lever that's going on here. It's about 800 thousandths thick, give or take. It's a casting, so it's not a precision measurement. And I want it to be about halfway. So I want to go in, I want the center of the cutter to be about 400 thousandths in from the end. I know again that my diameter is a 1/2 inch. We're going off the center, so we're going to use half of that, add it to the 400 thousandths. So I need to go 650 thousandths total. 400 thousandths plus for the center of the shaft, and then 250 thousandths for the center of the cutter. So we'll just, again, using the DRO, go to 650. And this is not super critical by any means, but we're going to get it right on the money. How about that? 650. Again, when I tighten my table down, I have to kind of mess with things just a little bit, and I'm not going to worry about 2/10. All right, so that should be my center in that direction. So I'm going to come back in this way until we get to a 0. When it touches off, and we can actually just use our 0 that we had before there. That was right on the money. So again, we'll go in a total of 138 thousandths. We'll lube it up and bring her on in. Right, there we are. Second Woodruff key cut. So over here on the bench now, I got my little key, and let's see, we're gonna tap this in place. I'm gonna go ahead and put the other one in while I'm at it. Actually, I'm going to wait on that one because we got to put a spacer in between them. So that should go right down on there. There's a set screw that'll fit in there. And let's see, he gave me a spacer that goes in between these. Now I should be able to put this one on. There we go. All right, so now we need to broach this one to fit on there, and we should be ready, should be done. So let's go out to the press, and we'll broach that part out. We're over here at the press, and I'm going to take my broach bushing. We'll drop it down in there, and I can line that up on the old hole that was drilled in here to kind of get it started. Because this is so small and I got such a big hole back here, I made just a little piece of iron here, drilled a 1/2 inch hole in it that this will go down into, and this will just this is basically just to give me some back support for all this. This is will allow it to lay flat. I got that right where I want it there. I'm going to point it toward me just to make it a little bit easier for me to see what's going on. I'll put my broach in here. We'll lube this up real good. And put my little spacer in between here to get it going. Take up that space, and we'll run that through. I'm just releasing the pressure here for a second to make sure that that broach is going straight. I don't want it to be cockeyed in there and risk breaking my broach. think we're good. Okay. This broach requires one shim behind it to go to final depth, so it takes 2 passes. And that shim will just take off a little bit extra on that second pass. And let's get our spacer back in here. And one more pass. Oop. Don't like the way that's going. That's better. And that should be the depth. All right, so I'm not sure which way this piece goes on. It really doesn't matter for right now. We're just going to put it on here, and Hector's going to probably have to take all this apart when he gets it anyway. Tap that in place. He's got a little washer that goes on the end that'll hold all this in place. And there's the assembly. There's a set screw that goes in this one. I don't have one. He didn't send one with me. So I'll let him source that and find that part. But that is all back together and ready to go back to Hector. All right, guys, I guess that'll be a wrap on this edition. Fairly simple little project. Just cut a couple of keyways, broach a keyway, and these parts are ready to go back to Hector. So I'll probably hang on to these until we get the gear done. Which will be coming up soon. As soon as we get my index plates in, that should also be a fairly simple repair. We're just going to have to cut a couple of teeth after fixing them. So, but got to have that index plate first. So hopefully we'll get those back soon. Anyway, Hector, appreciate the opportunity to work on this. I hope this serves you well, and I hope that clawing lathe works out good for you as well. And we'll talk to you guys later.